what we're going to do today is we're going to do something that I call, well, it's adding words on top of quilts. If you have a sewing machine that does nice embroidery, then you can add words on top of quilts fairly easily, I guess. I have a nice sewing machine, but I don't have the embroidery parts to it. And so I just have to do it in another way. Now, I suppose if I went and studied up, I could put words onto quilts with embroidery. But I would rather do it this way. This is sort of the cheap, easy way to put words on quilts. And the reason we want to put words on quilts is because sometimes we're making a quilt that just really calls for some words to be on there. If you're making a quilt for your grandson and you want to put their name on there, you might want to put Pipsqueak or something on your grandson's quilt. Well, it's really nice if you can put those letters real big on there. So I wanted to put words on these. These are some of the quilts that I have done that have words on them. I don't know if they can see all of these. And we're going to just sort of scan around and show you them. And let me know if you're watching. Oh, I'm not seeing those people.
I know.
Well,
that's why I put that on there.
Okay. Hi, Kim Bowling Park. I am not seeing who is watching, so thank you for letting me know you're watching. Go ahead and say hey. Today we're talking about putting words on quilts. And here are some of the quilts that I have made that I put words onto. I don't know which one was the first one, actually. It might have been this one right here. My husband and I read books. Yeah. We love to read. And usually we like to read books, of course. And he is a really, really voracious reader. He reads about two books a week or so. Well, he reads a lot. And so on this quilt that I made him, I wanted it to say, I like big books and I cannot lie. But I decided that might be a copyright issue with some wrapper, so I changed it to I like good books and I cannot lie. After I put those words on, I thought, well, that's not too hard at all to do. So I took, well, thank you, the iron is moving on, it's very cool. So then I thought, or I took this one to the library and said, I'm going to make a quilt for our library. We have a town library that we love, and so when I went to the librarian, I said, do you have any other suggestions of phrases that I could put on the quilt? And she suggested this: never judge a book by its movie. That has been quite popular. And so that's the one that I usually take to shows. And everybody will stop by the booth and say, oh, that's just so true. That's just so true. And then they will start talking about maybe a book that they have read and the movie and how the movie just did not do the book justice. So those two were my first two. And then I did the gift quilt a couple of years later for God So Loved the World. And then this one, this was in there too, Love One Another. So I've learned some things along the way, and hopefully I can tell you some of the tricks and some of the mistakes that I've made as I've done the words on quilts. First of all, on my website, let me see if anybody new is with us that I need to see. I don't see any, but two. Okay. I see, what we're going to be using today is something that I call Word Appliqué the Easy Way. And on the website, under tutorials, you can go there and scroll down and you will see Word Applique the easy way. And under that, there is a PDF with pictures and with more words. Under that PDF that says Word Applique the easy way, under tutorials, under the PDF, you'll also see one that says My Happy Place. So there you will see My Happy Place pattern. And earlier I posted a My Happy Place Part 1. This pattern that's on the website that you can download and print for yourself. It has Part 1 and 2. It tells you how to make this quilt, basically. And then it also has the explanation about adding the words, which is basically the same thing that's in the Word Applique PDF. So, and then on the back of My Happy Place, there are these words, My Happy Place, if you were to use it. So, you've got a lot of choices there if you're interested in using those exact words. So, let's go back to the front really quick. Oh, hi Pam, how are you? I'm glad to see you're there. At the very beginning on adding words to quilts, if you just want to add small words, like on these quilts where I have book names, these you can do those with embroidery, of course. I decided I would just use a permanent marker or a fabric marker and wrote them on. And for me, that was all I needed. I think they're permanent as I need them to be. But if you want to put large words on a quilt, you could paint them on with fabric paint. But using fabric is not too hard. And with this method, you use fusible. And so you don't have to worry about turning things around. Whatever you write is what you're going to see exactly. And I think it's somewhat whimsical, so I am not terribly worried. Pay no attention to the little noises that you're hearing. I'm not so worried about whether the words are perfect in every way. I think they're meant to be more personal. So, and there's no need to reverse the letters. I think I went through that. It's easy, but I do suggest that you practice a little bit first. So, when you're going to add words to quilts, you have two choices basically. You can either write the words yourself, or you can find a computer font that you like. So we're going to talk about both ways, both types. First of all, you need to decide how big your letters are going to be. And so this depends on how big of a space that you have. So for these quilts, I had a pretty good sized space to put the words in. And I made them, I think, these are really quite large. I think those are maybe like a total of 3.5 or 4 inches. When I did this My Happy Place business, I thought, well, at first I wanted to put them like this, but I didn't quite have enough room for that. So at the beginning I thought, I think my words can be 2.5 inches or 2 inches. I think I thought 2 inches. So what you do, and Remember, this is what I was thinking about when I first started. I thought 2-inch words, that's pretty good. So I took a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be freezer paper. This is freezer paper. And used a marker and a ruler and made myself writing lines. This is kind of like when you're in 2nd grade and you learn to do cursive writing. And it helps if you have some lines. So you have a top line and a bottom line, and you have a dotted line in the middle. Well, after I did the 2 inches and I practiced, so after you get those lines down, then what you're going to do is, well, let me go ahead since I've got these lines. I also did lines that were 2.5 inches because I thought, well, those don't look very big. 2.5 inches might be a better size. So I did the same thing. Made practice lines, and then I put a piece of plain paper over top. Oh, I see somebody else. Becky Hardesty. Hi, Becky. Thanks for watching. We are talking about practicing words, just like you used to do in 2nd grade. I was a 2nd grade teacher, so I know all about how to write. Then, what you're going to do is you can on your own, you'll be able to see the dark lines underneath. And then just practice your words. And if you're doing my happy place, you might just print. Well, we could do both. Let's print my, and I'm just going to start with my, just because it's fast and easier. So you print your words, and then you think, well, okay, I can't, that's not going to work. We have to make that word bigger. We have to make it much more thick, because remember, you're going to be sewing these down, and you're going to be cutting them out. So I usually go around and I make this bigger, and then I make sort of like the old, what do we call those cloud letters that we used to do when we had nothing to do in school. And keep working on them. And as you can see, on my 2-inch ones, they're getting a little bit bigger than my lines. But I'm getting there. The point is they need to be bigger, they need to be fatter, they need to be hooked together. See how the M and the Y need to touch when you get done. If you do all of these words in separate letters, you're going to have to do a lot of cutting and a lot of lining up. Whereas if you stick your letters together, you've got it so much easier. So you can either do printing, you can also do cursive writing. So for cursive writing, you would make a nice M, and then a Y. I don't know if you can see that. And then you're going to do the same thing. Take a big marker, make those letters bigger, make sure that they hook nicely together. And it might take, this is not something, because you're being artistic with your writing, this is not something that you're going to do in like 2 seconds. I'm just doing it really quick here. You make sure that you have your loops in there. When you get them to where you think you're going to like them, then you're going to make a final copy. So here are some of my practices. Now they're not very pretty. This is, I'm pretty sure this is 2.5 inches. And this is 2.5 inches. And I actually went ahead at 2.5 inches and did some letters. And then when I got them done, and I looked at them, and I thought, ooh, you know, those aren't going to be very easy to work with. So I quickly went back to the drawing board, and I moved up to 3 inch, I believe. Well, they're 2.5. I think these are 2.5 right through here, but they're, when you put the H in, they're more like 3 inches. And I went and checked these after I got all done with these, and these are almost 4 inches. So it's easier to do bigger letters. It's just, take it from me, the bigger and fatter, the easier they are to do. You want your letters to hook together. Don't worry about perfection. Just the main thing is so that they're readable and so that they are hooked together and look decent. All right, so that's if you want your own handwriting. If you don't like your own handwriting, or you don't think it ever looks like what you want, you can go to the computer and you can look under the fonts. We found several fonts that I liked. And here's one that, again, if you get a font that's real skinny and just skinny and perfect, you're probably not going to choose that one because it's going to be difficult to work with. Fat. Hi, Terry. This is all because of you, Terry. I hope you appreciate this. No, I'm teasing. Terry was the one that came up with this. She thought that it would be interesting to learn more about putting words on quilts. And for Terry and for anybody else that just joined us, I am going to back up just a second. On the website, everything that I'm talking about today is available for you to download and kind of go slowly along with at your own pace at home. There is a PDF that's called Word Applique, the Easy Way, and it's under tutorials, and under Word Applique, the Easy Way, there is also a My Happy Place pattern PDF. Now, eventually when I'm all done with the quilting and I have the binding on and everything else, I will put this pattern on the website in a different spot. It will be under free patterns or something. But for right now, it's under tutorials. You're welcome to download it. Everything I say and probably more is on those papers. Okay, but we're talking today. If you don't want to write your own words, go to your computer, find a font that you like. This font was one that we liked, one that I liked, and the only problem is you see how the letters are separate. So if you use something like this, you would want to go over it. I think these are. Now this is Chalkboard 200. I would probably make it bigger. Go to maybe 250. And then I would try to touch each letter to his friend in the word. So H would be stuck next to A stuck into P in some way. And that's why it's easier for me if you use cursive writing, because then you have those curves that hook the letters together. One of the other computer fonts that we liked was, or I like this, called Sign Painter. And that's because it was sort of a script-like thing. And this is Sign Painter, where is Sign Painter 225? Yes, here's Sign Painter 225. Isn't that nice? And all you have to do is basically go around the outsides and then hook the M to the Y, the H to the A, the P to the L. Now, the P to the L My husband didn't really like the way that came out, but that's the way I wanted it to work. Now you could maybe come from here. Anyway, this is Sign Painter 225. I decided once I got it out, I did it, and I thought it's just a little too small. If it's small, it's going to be much more difficult. Well, it's not much more. It's just harder to put in the space. So this is Sign Painter 2.5, and I liked it well enough. So what I did was I took it, and where is my picture? Let's put it on it. This is 225. That's too small. Yep, here I am. I just took the 220 or the 2.5 and I copied it and added the connecting, the curve to connect them together. You probably can't see that because it's in pencil. Here it is. And this is what is on the paper too. It's on the pattern back, I think. And actually, after doing this one, it's good, although I think if I were doing it again, I might even give myself a little more space between the M and the Y. Picky little point, but it does make it easier if you're cutting it out. If you notice the word like up here, if you have a little space between your letters, it sometimes is a little easier to cut them out. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, so you decide what font you want. Then you're going to take a piece or a pencil and you're going to trace it. And so you have a nice copy. This is my trace copy. And then you're going to trace your trace copy with a thick black magic marker. You want something that's going to show through because you're going to take a piece of freezer paper and you're going to lay it over your black vinyl copy and you're going to trace that. Now, I traced it with a blue pen, but you can do it with a pencil. It doesn't matter as long as, I don't know, an ink pen or what. Oh, do not use a friction pen because you're going to be pressing this. So a friction pen will erase itself. It might. It doesn't matter. So you want to trace it onto freezer paper, onto the dull side of freezer paper. The back side will be the side that's a little sticky. Okay. And let's see. Then we have to get, so we've got all three. I didn't trace all three words here for you again today, but trace all the words you need onto the freezer paper. Then cut them out, cut the freezer paper out so that, now let me show you all this. Would you hand me those blue scissors over there, assistant, please? I have a wonderful, handsome assistant. I forgot. I thought I had everything here, but I do not have my paper scissors. All right. So then you take your paper scissors and you cut out pretty close to the words. I left maybe a quarter of an inch, an eighth of an inch. But the closer you get, the better it is to try to fit it onto your fabric. You don't want to waste a lot of fabric because you don't need to. So you cut out your freezer paper words, and then you're going to get your fabric ready. Getting your fabric ready is pretty easy. For using for this project right here, and only doing 3 words about this size, you're only going to need a piece of a piece of fabric that's made about 8 by 12. That's plenty big. And so you need that same size of fusible web. Now this is not 8 by 12. This is just a little hump that I had to show you, because I'm not going to press this actually out. But what you do is you lay your fabric face down on your ironing board, take your fusible, pull the paper backing off, stick it down on the back of your fabric. Here, this is just stuck down. I would also take my iron and with a dry iron press it. And then I even, just to be on the safe side, I go to my, these are paper scissors and not. I go to my cutting board or use my scissors and I cut this out so that there's not extra fabric without fusible on it, just in case, you know. So press this with a dry iron and it's ready to go. Then we don't need those paper scissors anymore. Okay, maybe I should take a break here. Does anybody have a question right now before we go on? I don't see a passel of questions. That's because I'm doing a super job. Or not. I didn't. Okay. No big questions. Okay. I don't see my... Oh, I'm seeing my words here on your phone. Okay, no questions. Let's move on. So you have a piece of fabric with fusible on the back, and now you're going to put your freezer paper words on top. And I'm just going to show you on this one. I'm not going to really cut it. But you can, if you have an 8 by 12 inch hunk of fabric, you can fit all of your words on top of that. Sort of, sometimes you might smash them together. You can have the my upside down or something like that. But there will be room to get it on there. Let's see, I have here's a my from a different, see, you can sometimes, as long as you can fit them on, however they fit. And what I do is I lay them down and I just press them with a hot iron, a dry iron. You don't need, and if I, did I turn that iron on? No. Okay. Well, then I won't take the time to do that right now. But what I do is I hit it with a dry, hot iron, and then I cut them. Oh, then I let them dry for just a second. Let them cool down a little bit, and then I'm going to cut them out. And, I don't know. Maybe I should. When you cut them out, what I do, because the cutting is one of the more tricky spots, I think. I start out by cutting the outside lines of the words. And I've got some really nice Karen K. Buckley scissors. They're very good. They're serrated and they are just wonderful. I have 2 different sizes. And I was using these, and maybe it was because I was using too small letters, but I was having more problems with them. So I went back and just got some regular scissors. And I found that for cutting, at least for cutting the outsides of these, it was easier to use just regular scissors. And so you cut around the outside, and then you notice some of these have little tiny loops in them. What you can do, if your paper is still holding, you don't want to cut across your fabric ever. But you can fold the paper and just snip and cut around the loop. You can do that on all the letters. If your paper is just not sticking after, I sometimes will go back and hit it with the iron a couple of times just to make sure it's staying while I'm cutting out letters. Now on these loops, I finally got to the place where I thought, you know, I really don't need that loop there. I can look at this area and say, okay, I'll make a loop right there. And I would just draw it on there. Sometimes I drew them on the back. I even tried on one set to cut out the letters in the freezer paper before I put them on. So here's an example. Here's happy. Now, I've already cut around these. I think these, yeah. But you can, before you stick them down, if you want to cut out those circles, you know, go ahead and try that if you like, and then you can use a pencil or a marker. That's when you can use that that friction marker, just to make your little circle inside. And if you're, who cares if it's exactly on the line. Mainly you want it to look like the loop inside the letter A or the loop inside the Y. So these are the first set of letters that I cut out. I think these are the right size. Yes, these are the right size. And actually, I wish I would have used these letters. Being the wise one that I am, I thought, oh, I will just make another set out of a little bit less red fabric. So that's how I got these. And, well, you learn something along the way. When I put them on here, I decided that they really weren't as good as the other reds, but I had already got them fused down. So they're there, and these are just another set. I want to do another set. So anyway, after you get your letters cut out, then lay them on top of your empty space in different arrangements until you find one that you like. I will don't take your paper off of the back of your letters until you're ready to fuse them down. For one thing, when you take that paper off the back, especially, I don't know, on this size, this was kind of like working with a little octopus with lots of. So take it slowly. Make sure everything is cooled down. If you need to use a little pin, sometimes a little sharp pin will help crease the paper so you can get it off so that it's easy. But then you just lay it down where you like it. If you need to adjust things, you can adjust them usually until they're pressed. So, and actually, if you can get these letters down, you're doing really pretty good. Because these other letters, these bigger letters, were way, way, way easier. They didn't seem to like hook together or just like on me like these did. But, and if you do a thing that has like three big letters, boy, that's a breeze. It's just really, really easy. So, once you've got them down, use your iron, follow the manufacturer's directions, fuse them down really good, and then they are not permanent. So then you need to, oh, I've got all these scissors here. Then you need to do some stitching on them, because especially if you're going to use them for a kid quilt that will be washed. If you're using them for a wall quilt, I doubt that they're going to go anywhere too much, but I stitch them down anyway. And while I have all these scissors here, I do use the big ones to go around the outside. I use smaller ones to go around the pieces on the inside. All right, now stitching them down. If you are just using, show that quilt, the joy little quilt that I did. If you are just appliquing big letters down, it's really, really easy. You will need to find a font that you can make pretty big, or make your letters pretty good size. These letters are like, I don't know, maybe the whole quilt's maybe 12 by 16 or something. It's not super huge. But you will need to make your letters good size. And if you look close at that, you will see that the letters are stitched down using that buttonhole or blanket stitch. So on big, big letters, I can blanket stitch them down. But on these little tiny things, well, they're not tiny, but on the smaller wall quilts where there's a lot more there, I just put them under the sewing machine and put my feed dogs down and put my free motion foot on, and I stitch around them. Can you show that? Come in close on the sewing machine here, dear, so that people can maybe see that. This is my free motion foot, because I also use it for quilting, and I've been quilting on this little guy. He's not dead. But I put the free motion foot down, put the feed dogs down. I use matching thread. I use a red thread. I'm going to pull this down so I can show it. Or you can show it too on the, you have some close-ups, don't you, of that? And I just go right around the letters, just on the outside of the letters with a straight stitch. It's not a very big piece, so if you just stick it under here and just right around with a straight stitch all the way around for your letters. There's also a close-up of those letters that we have there somewhere. The my and the happy. Take a look at there. You can see in this picture the close picture of the my and the happy. The red thread was a pretty good match, and I'm not perfect at all. Make sure when you do that you stitch around the little loops that are there, and just do straight stitch around them. That way they're not going to go anywhere, and people really can't see that very closely anyway. Okay, so, and let's see, is there anything else I needed to say about the word applique? Let me look at my notes. Any questions? Any questions from anybody? I can't see my phone to see if there's any questions. Susie's watching. You're finally here. And Donnie. I'm going to start some word applique. That Donnie, he is so talented. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. I am finished. When I finish the quilting on this, then I am going to put a binding on it, and then I'm going to actually do like the front cover will have the words on it, and then the back cover will have the fabric requirements in case somebody needs that. And it will be a free pattern on the website. So, and then there has been a request from some people to do the joy quilt, or that little joy wall hanging. Oh, what kind of sewing foot? Oh, this is my free motion. I don't know if you can see that close up. This is my free motion quilting feet, one of them. I have two others. The others have a cross thing there, which I sometimes use, but this is, so when I'm going to do free motion stitching, this is what I use. I also sometimes, oh, I see them, you see it. This is one I use for rickrack, because sometimes this one, the rickrack will catch in here. So those of you that make flower hugs, it's easier if you have a foot like this, which doesn't catch that rickrack in there. But this is a free motion foot. You put your feed dogs down on your sewing machine, and then you can just use your hands to move around each letter as you're to stitch it down. If I had one, I would do it, but I already stitched mine down. But I just start here on the M, and I just stitch up to the top, down, around, and so on. Okay, does it matter what size thread? Oh, good. Yes, it does. Terry's, I use, well, oh, wait, yes. I use well, basically, I am more interested in the thread matching the color. But if there's a choice between a thick thread and a thin thread, then I will go with a thinner thread, just because I really don't want it to show. So definitely it matters. Use a lighter weight thread. If you use a lighter weight thread, like a 50 or a 60 weight thread, then you can use your 80 needle, 1280 needle, or even maybe a 70 if you have one. If you don't have anything but thick thread, use that thicker thread as long as it matches color-wise, and then use a little bit bigger needle if you need to. But since these are not very wide, you don't want to use a really, if you can help, a really fat thread, because you don't have a lot of space between there and the edge. Okay, good questions. Good questions. Any other questions? Well, I started to mention I'm going to do the Joy Quilt 2. I'm going to have to make just another one. Oh, and I'm going to put that as on there on the website. It's sort of a free thing too, so you can look for that. It's made the same way, and if you want to start with that rather than start with, this bigger quilt, wait for it and you can do that one. Finally, if you have a machine like a Brother Scan and Cut, there's other machines. Silhouette, I think, is another machine. Cricut, yeah, maybe a Cricut. Those machines will cut fabric, and they do a super good job. We do have a Scan and Cut, which I really love, and I thought about using it for this, but then I thought, well, since I know that not everybody has one, it might be best just to do something that you have to cut out. So these were done with scissors. But if you have a Scan and Cut, use it by all means. If you want to get one or want to have more practicing finding out somebody that knows a lot about them. There's a gal in Indy who I can recommend. Her name is Lynn Hodge, and she knows all about scan and cuts. And there's even a group that will help you with your scan and cuts. Okay, I think that's everything that I ever knew about putting words on quilts. You have a lot of options. You can do whatever you want, try out new things. It's really fun, and I'm sure you can come up with some really snazzy quilts with words on them. So contact me if you've got any other questions or need any more help, or if you've got any other ideas on what you want to know more about. We'd be glad to catch you up on what we know. So thanks for watching today, and we will be back soon with something new. Oh, one more person. Oh, thanks, Terry. You're sweet. All of my quilters are so nice. Oh, thank you, Rosemary. You're all just such good helpers to keep us together quilting, even during this darn hateful, awful nest. Maybe I should use some of these words on a quilt about coronavirus, and then I can get it all off of my system. Or off of my head. Thank you. See you again.